Kenya's decision to move visa restrictions, right, sparks discussion about a borderless Africa. Kenya, all right? So the Kenyan president came out and says Kenya to freely open its gates to any business person of African descent. This was in the Business Insider Africa on the 1st of June 2023. And the first tagline, which I spoke about Kenya's decision to remove visa restrictions, sparks discussions about a borderless Africa. This was posted in Global Voices on the 30th of June 2023. My opinion is, why hasn't Africa done its own type of EU? Why do we have all these border restrictions? Trucks, logistics should just move freely from one country to another. People should just visit one country to another. Let's build the economic base. That Pan-Africanism starts by us opening the borders. Open the floor to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think it's a long story, this one, because we have to go back to what I enjoy talking about, imperialism and the neocolonialism. You find that those borders, they are there to restrict trade amongst African countries. And if we are not trading amongst each other, then it's easier for external, forces to come and destabilize our relationships because we are not already united as Africans. So with the Pan-African movement, the ideology is to have one Africa where there are no borders at all, of which there is always a first step towards a good move. So what Ruto is doing in Kenya is actually good. Some might argue that why not open for everyone? Why do you just open for businesses only? But this is the first step towards greatness, a great and united Africa. So if this pilot of business, is successful, then possibly they can open for everyone, no visa to go into Kenya, as long as you're an African citizen, which will improve trade. And I was watching, what's his name, Malema, the EFF leader, saying that even if they open borders, it doesn't mean people from Zimbabwe will flock into Kenya, escaping financial quagmires in Zimbabwe. People will remain in Zimbabwe, despite, the lucrative or the greener pastures in Kenya. You will find that even if there are open borders, he was giving an example of Limpopo and Gauteng, Johannesburg, that Limpopo is poor, but Johannesburg is well up, is an affluent, city or province. But some people are born in Limpopo, grew up in Limpopo. They don't have any visa that they need to get to Johannesburg, but they died in Limpopo. So people who can stay wherever they are. Open borders are for people to come, do trade, and go back to their respectable, places. So up with the open borders. Back to you, Captain P.
Yeah, look, as I said before we head off to Tina's, I'll refer back to the globalvoices.org article. And looking at some of the countries here, like Seychelles, Seychelles has got no visa for anyone for African descent. But most of the people who here are saying I'm going for a holiday in Seychelles are people traveling from the UK, America, Australia that I want to go to Seychelles. We don't know this information which is out there that you can just go with your Zimbabwean passport. You don't need a visa. You're there in Seychelles. You're with your South African passport, with your Kenyan passport. You're there. You're boosting the tourism. Benin doesn't need visa. And if you look on Google Maps, Benin has got a whole coastline, right? Where there's big tourism, which can be made there and big revenue for Benin. So I think this is the type of discussions where people can just start to drive. You've got your Zimbabwean passport, you've got your South African passport, you can do your drive all the way from Cape Town, that Cape to Cairo, which we've always spoken about. Yes, you can drive there, but you have to go through border control. You have to know what each country's border control is. But if you show your passport, there you go. You're right through. In Europe, they've got they where you can cross from Switzerland into Germany. You can cross from Portugal into France just using a motorway, right? All those things. We as Africa, if we start to do this, Africa goes to another level. Tinas, your thoughts?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think I just want to applaud Ruto. I think he seems like a very switched on guy. He seems like he has, a lot of initiative that is trying to take on. Especially when it comes to the way he's challenging the normal diplomacy in Africa, where we were more of recipients, even though we own the resources, but still we're just recipients of aid. And he's trying to challenge that, and I think he's really spoken up on issues that are concerning African countries. He's speaking about African factories. He's speaking about us being able to consume our own products. Look, awesome. But when it comes to this issue, again, I applaud him. Awesome. But I think we have a page to take from the EU. And I think this initiative, if I could say first, this initiative we need it at a point where when African countries are balanced economies, so that we try and prevent that movement of people. Because look at what happened in the EU. As soon as the borders are open, everybody went to the UK. So as much as Malema could say what he's saying, we have a case study that everybody has seen. And look at what has happened to the UK. They exited. It was Brexit because the economy just couldn't take it. And, there's a very big page to take out of that book. And I just feel like that is a good initiative. It is not a right now sort of initiative. Let's fix other issues first and foremost. Let's fix how the world views Africa. Let's fix how the world is willing to trade with Africa. And then once our economies are stable enough, then let's open the borders. We also have other issues like terrorism that are happening, the Islamists and all these people. Let's deal with that before we start opening borders and saying, yes.
Yes.
Okay, can I
agree.
respond on the terms of the EU?
Yeah.
Look, full disclaimer, I think you boys know, you gents know, I'm a liberal conservative supporter. But that whole Brexit and all that whole EU, that's a big red herring, right?
Yeah.
The UK never went over 100 million people, right?
But
France's migration, right?
Yeah.
Most of its migrational increase came from refugees coming by boat from African countries, not through EU countries.
Mostly French-speaking countries.
Germany never had a big influx, right? That was just a red herring, and I'm not a Labour supporter.
No, but
across the aisle, whether it's in the UK, if I was even living in the UK, I wouldn't vote Labour.
Germany took on a lot of Muslims, though.
Yeah, they
People
took
from Iraq.
Yeah, they took on, but that's not through EU. No one from Poland moved, and they all said we're leaving Poland, we're leaving Romania. Yes, some moved. Of course, some moved. That happens. Migration will always happen in some form. But let's be really honest. Has Brexit really benefited the United Kingdom? That was a Boris Johnson type of Trumpian move, because there was that Trumpian movement about, us. And of course, again, another disclaimer, Trump, I'll defend him to a certain extent. I will not just be against Trump like all the mad people out there on social media. But again, we need to be honest that if the AU opens itself up and starts to do internal trade, right? Getting that uranium from Niger coming down to Southern Africa, powering electricity, getting the minerals from DRC, not the minerals leaving DRC on planes to go to support Belgium and France, but coming to sustain.
Okay. So I think the point we're making here is is free trade first and foremost.
Free trade.
Yes.
Your
Before
issue,
we open up borders for actual people to be moving around.
yes,
and doing
free
what-
trade.
Yes.
What we're talking
Okay.
about is free trade.
Yeah.
Because
Now
what we want to do is about free trade. If we start with free
Yeah.
trade and
Yeah.
then we move to what Joe alluded last week about governance, the correct governance of the free trade. We're not saying, because if we say free trade, we know some of our unfortunate African leaders who want to take everything from themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's
That's why I
free
said
trade,
stabilize our economies.
stabilize our economies, then it becomes free trade. That's why Ruto started with business opportunity. He didn't
That's
say
it.
he didn't
That's
say
it.
population. He said business. So if you want to come and start your business, right, of African, you've gotten your idea, which you've seen in Brisbane, in Perth, in Sydney, right? And you go, you fly to Kenya, you say, I'm of African descent. This is what I want to establish. Or we can establish our own, for example, African or AU Amazon, right?
But gentlemen, this is being said visa-less, visa-free, bilateral visa-free entry.
Yes.
Are we talking about the same thing here?
We are talking of the same thing, but if you read into the article, it's for business purposes.
Okay.
So you find your reason to visit the country has to be
It's got to be
business.
business. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
We're not talking about the trade of people just migrating.
Because they know if it's business, I'm coming into Kenya to take my car from Nairobi or to take cars from Nairobi. That's a business visa. That's a business trip. I'm bringing in business into Kenya.
Yeah.
I'm going to be using their hotels and hospitality facilities. I'm bringing in revenue for them.
I think it's like I said earlier, I think I applaud him for that. He's really trying to take that initiative. I think a lot of African leaders have been afraid to speak after Muammar Gaddafi, after the likes of Robert Mugabe were used as examples. But I think that's the direction that Africa needs to take. They need to start, inching away from the sort of trade that only supports imperialism, as you'd love to speak on, Joe. But, we have got to grow. We've got to grow as
If you've enjoyed this short clip, click the link in the description to listen to the full episode, or listen to us on your favorite podcast platform, or check out the pinned comment where again we've got the link for the full episode. Remember to subscribe, like, share, leave your comments. Let's have a discussion what you feel about this topic which we shared on this amazing short clip of Amajian's podcast. Thank you and have an awesome week.